female New Mexicans' political point of view, and we're welcoming Judge Lopez, who is a candidate for the Court of Appeals, to the show. Welcome, Judge.
Thank you. Good day.
We're looking to get to know you a little bit better, so we're going to ask you some questions. First one is, tell us about your family and community.
Okay, well, let's see, how do I start? I met my wife when I was going to UCLA, and we've been married for 29 years. We just had our anniversary last August, and she was actually originally from New Mexico, from Belen. She grew up in Belen, Lindsay County area, and she decided to pick me up at the law school patio at UCLA. She had just won her seat on the lottery, and so she asked me, when are you going to take me out to dinner? Everyone else has. And of course, that's all it took, because she says that's the last time she had asked me out. And the rest is history. We've been married 29 years. We have 3 children. Our eldest is Victor. He's 26 years old. Then we have Graciela. She's about 23, going to be 24 years old. And then we have Evelina, who's 14 years old.
You went to UCLA. You came from New Mexico?
Well, I was born and raised in San Diego, California. That was where my roots. But then I went to school at UC Berkeley, undergraduate, and then UCLA. And of course, that's where I met my wife. I was probably about 22 years old at the time. And we decided to go ahead and come to New Mexico and give New Mexico a few years try, and then see, maybe go to California and give it a few years try. Of course, we've been here for 29 years, so we've raised 3 kids here, so I mean, I'm definitely here for the long term.
Has that effect on people?
Yeah, well, it does. It does. I'm already looking for a plot.
We've seen that you're active in the local community.
Yes.
A lot of the political activists know you from or just taking part and being involved in your community. Right. Is there any other community activities you do?
Well, for many years I've been involved in the arts community. For 7 years I served with a number of very excellent artists and other public service individuals working on the Bernalillo County Arts Board. And that was a great board to be on, because we basically went out and took bids from artists and did interviews and reviewed the work that these artists were proposing for certain projects. The biggest project I think we ever worked on was the 2nd Judicial District Courthouse. And if you've been in the courthouse and gone to every floor, you'll see it's kind of like going into a gallery, and you'll see all the artwork that we selected. There's paintings, there's sculptures, there's huge Indian blankets, and we just did an incredible job. And we did that through the 1% for the arts program. And so 1% of the project, of the construction project for that courthouse, went into art. And so we certainly went through that and did what we could to improve the atmosphere for litigants going into court.
Okay.
And so currently I'm serving, for years I also served on the Albuquerque board, the foundation, Albuquerque Foundation, which is kind of a fundraising group for the museum. And now I'm on the Albuquerque Museum Board of Trustees, and I've been doing that for a number of years, and we kind of deal with kind of policy issues. It's a very fun board to be on, so that's one of the community activities I've been involved in.
Yeah, New Mexico has a talented diversity when it comes to local artists, and It's always good to see their work in the courthouse.
Right.
Once you graduated and came here, what's your experience in the actual field of law?
Well, the first thing that I did when I came to New Mexico, I wrote an article trying to protect the rights of individuals, actually children, to an education on equal terms, as well as equal health care rights. And I wrote that article for UCLA when I was there. But Judge Lopez from the Court of Appeals at the time, once he received that in the mail and I was looking for a job, he offered me a job. He called me as soon as he opened the packet, because he saw it was in one of the advance sheets, and he was very impressed with my article. And this was back in 1982. So I mean, I've been writing and working on this for a long time. But he offered me a job, and I was more than glad to do it. And so, of course, my first job in New Mexico was in Santa Fe, working at this beautiful courthouse. It's a very old, but very classic and unique courthouse in the Supreme Court building. And And so that was my introduction to law in New Mexico. Ever since then, well, I also clerked for Judge Ellery after Judge Lopez retired, but ever since then I've been involved with the Attorney General's office. I was there for about 3.5 years, and I dealt with issues involving the interplay between state and federal rights, environmental issues, as well as historic preservation issues, some cleanup issues for environmental issues. And so it was a very interesting experience, a very valuable experience for me. After that, I went to work for Alton Cantor and Barbara Everidge, where I had a wide variety of experience dealing with divorce cases, child support, child custody issues. We did a lot of collections, we did some bankruptcy work, we did some property disputes, and so that's kind of the beginnings of my broad experience, what I like to call my broad experience. After that, I started kind of specializing in workers' compensation. And the way I started that was I met a gentleman by the name of Edward Benavides, who was a former workers' compensation judge. And Eddie was a great guy, and at the time he was looking for some help, and I wanted to learn about workers' comp, because it's something that I've always had an affinity to. And having grown up in a, kind of in poverty, really, because my mom raised 5 kids by herself and did the best she could, but it's a tough life, and so we had to go work early. And when I was 13, 14 years old, we worked at restaurants and floors. But it was that kind of background, and I always had an affinity to the workers' compensation area, but I didn't know much about it. So Eddie took me under his wing, and for a few years we worked together, and he basically tutored me, mentored me in the workers' compensation area. And it was a great experience, and ever since then I started practicing workers' compensation law, and I supplemented my other experiences as well, because even though I was doing a workers' comp practice, some of the cases would turn into personal injury cases. If there was a car accident involved, for example, or somebody had a divorce, I'd help with that. So I had a pretty broad experience in that. But I did a lot of workers' comp. I did